Good morning. Okay. Okay, let's go ahead and call this meeting to order. Can we get a roll call vote, Michelle?
Yes. Good morning. Ms. Grijalva?
Here.
Dr. Gravosha?
Here.
Ms. Luna Rose?
Here.
Ms. Shaw?
Here. Okay, thank you, Michelle. Okay, item 2.2, land acknowledgement statement that today is going to be read by Ms. Roxanne Begay James, Director of Native American Student Services.
Good morning. Good morning. Before we begin, I want to allow my staff to say good morning. So I'm going to go ahead and have them come up and just say good morning real quick. Go ahead. Good morning. Go ahead.
Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Awesome. It is an honor to be able to read the land acknowledgement statement. And so, Yad Binisha A Roxanne Begain She, Nasht Ejetra Bahan Shlobet Ahni A Bashichin, Twitch Eatney A Dashiche, Dot Lizafane Dashinala, Dikut Ao A Stanshle. On behalf of the governing board of the Tucson Unified School District, we, Native American Student Services, acknowledge that the schools, buildings, and facilities of the Tucson Unified School District reside on the ancestral homeland of the Tanatam Nation and the federally recognized tribal land of the Pasquayaqui tribe.
Thank you. It's great to meet your staff as well.
Thank you. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we're going to move ahead with the Pledge of Allegiance. And Dr. Trujillo is doing it today?
Yes, I will handle the duties. If we're ready to go, do we have a flag graphic? I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Dr. Trujillo. Next up is agenda adjustments.
Ms. Shaw,
Yes.
I'd like to recommend that we move call to the audience to the end of action, considering that we have at least one board member that has a hard stop in like 30 minutes. I want to make sure that we're able to do action. And then we can, and we have had, I personally have had about over 100 emails about different positions. So I'm happy to stay on later, but I'd like to ask that we move call to the audience to the end of the meeting. And I'll do that as a motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion on that? Personally, I'm not in favor of that, but we can do a roll call vote.
Thanks. And I understand, Ms. Shaw, I've never asked to do it, but I'm just thinking at the time.
For sure. Michelle, can we get a roll call vote?
Yes. Ms. Grijalva?
Yes.
Dr. Gravosha?
Yes.
Ms. Luna Rose?
Yes.
Ms. Shaw?
No. Item passes. Okay, so I guess we're going to go ahead and move on to item 4.1. Dr. Trujillo.
Yes, Board Clerk Shaw, members of the governing board. This morning in executive session, all of you were briefed in terms of legal information regarding this morning's matter that's up for consideration. At this point, I will turn it over to our general counsel, Mr. Rob Ross, who will lead the group through the options for consideration this morning. Mr. Ross.
Thank you, Dr. Trujillo. I don't want to get too deep into the executive session material, but it seems that the options that the board has regarding House Bill 2898's provision for purporting to prohibit mask mandates There are serious questions regarding whether that law is effective until September 29th, but the options that the board has currently are to consider whether or not they want to institute a mandate for masks for some period of time that the board chooses. The board can also continue with strong recommendations for masks as according to the CDC guidelines and Pima County Public Health. Or the board can make other recommendations for mitigation. I know that Dr. Trujillo has implemented and instituted some increased mitigation as well that he probably would be happy to talk about. But at this point, it would, if the board wants to, it can make a comment or make motions on whether or not there's going to be requirements for masks, at least for the next couple of months, and then perhaps revisit that as conditions change. I know the board has talked about that before, that it wants to revisit mitigation measures at every meeting until, I guess, if the board feels safe that we're in a stable position. It makes sense to do that now, and make a statement as to what the board's position on face coverings will be. There also, as has been reported in the news, there are potential legal challenges being made regarding this law, and the board could, as discussed in executive session, direct its counsel to pursue legal action at an appropriate time if necessary. So that's kind of what's out there. I'm not sure if there's something else, Dr. Trujillo, you wanted to address.
Any discussion, board members?
Ms. Shaw,
Yes.
I'd like Dr. Trujillo to speak on what's changed from our last board meeting as far as what he has, whatever changes have been made, because we talked about mitigation last time. I've received several letters. My children are at 3 different schools, so I've received 3 different letters from 3 different principals, all kind of reiterating masks are optional, and that people that are indoors that are vaccinated don't have to wear a mask. And so a lot of that has changed even in the last 2 weeks. And so I'd like to know what the status is for, visitors on campus, what our expectations are of employees, that kind of thing, before we discuss the other mitigation options.
Board member, first of all, Yolanda, staff, can you hear me okay? I received a message that I'm not audible. Can everybody hear me okay? All right.
You're fine.
So as all of you know, as of this morning, masks are optional. When the governor issued the executive order retroactive to June 30th, and I know that retroactivity will be a subject of discussion that will ensue here in a moment, we issued direction to our staff and all of our employees that masks, of course, in accordance with that executive order, are now optional. In the last few weeks, as we've seen the Delta variant surge across the state, the county, and the city, we have, of course, circled back. We met with principals a few days ago. We reviewed with them 3 mitigation strategy changes or rollbacks, if you will. I have a letter that's prepared to go out to the employees this morning pending the outcome of this meeting. But the mitigation rollbacks that I'm going to discuss right now are administrative, not necessarily board initiated like masks. So change number 1, as we briefed principals, is that now every single visitor to any of our campuses, district offices, or facilities, whether they're from the community or a parent or a vendor, they're required to wear a mask. The second major rollback is where previously, when we presented our mitigation plan to you in June, we had greenlit the continued work of campus volunteers. Those people that, as wonderful as they are, coming onto our campuses, performing duties and services pro bono during the instructional day inside. So those are your Literacy Connects folks, your Reading Seed folks. I've had to roll that back. And so now we are not processing volunteers at the moment. We are focusing on minimizing the amount of adults that are congregating in indoor settings. when we don't need to be congregating. So we've rolled back volunteers. So at this time, volunteers are not able to continue on their service at this time indefinitely. This does not apply to those athletic volunteers or performance arts volunteers that are largely working in outdoor settings where transmission of the virus is significantly mitigated. So your outdoor sports, your marching band, all of that takes place outdoors. So we're not referencing those volunteers. We're referencing those that are working inside directly with groups during the instructional day, indoors, in classrooms. The third mitigation rollback that we've given guidance to principals on is effective Monday of next week. We're asking that all district level meetings, department meetings, site level meetings take place virtually, that we return to virtual formats in the spirit of limiting the gathering of folks that, quite frankly, we don't know their vaccination status. So we've taken these 3 steps immediately. We recognize that this week, our staff and our leaders, our administrators and our teachers had a lot of activities already planned. They had a lot of meetings that were already planned. They had a lot of social activities that were already planned. We didn't want to interrupt those activities, just like we didn't want to interrupt class of 2020 graduations. So we're going to let those play out and set an effective date of Monday. There will be a letter going to all employees by the end of today. And of course, that letter, the final piece of that letter, will include guidance or expectations, depending on the outcome of this meeting, on masks. And that will be the final piece.
Dr. Trujillo, on that point about the volunteers not being allowed on campus anymore, I mean, how many people is that impacting? And I mean, if we're already allowing, or I guess making visitors wear a mask, why can't the volunteers continue on and just be masked as well?
There's a major difference between visitor and volunteer. Visitor is on site for a very, very short period of time for just a very specific purpose. Picking up a form, walking. The most common visitors we have are just parents walking their kids to the classroom, which we welcome and we continue to welcome so long as those parents wear a mask. When you're talking about volunteer work, you have adults coming in who we don't know their vaccination status, and they're working with groups of students for longer periods of time, half days, 3-4 hours, facilitating small reading groups, working inside of classrooms, functioning as teachers' assistants. And that's where we're a little bit more concerned in terms of the roles that a volunteer plays versus just a visitor coming in for a short period of time.
Ms. Shaw?
Yes.
So considering the information that we have from a neighboring district, I'd just like to share with the community that there was one district open that's about 4,000 students, K-12. There were 102 COVID positive cases between, if you factor in staff, students, and teachers, 11 outbreaks on school campuses and school-based environments. And that was in 8 school days, 102 positive cases. This is in a community that, if you look at the map of transmission for COVID, has not been a hotspot, whereas TUSD, we've had several of our schools been in communities that are significantly hot for the spread of COVID. We have more children that are seeking emergency intervention in emergency rooms, and the pediatric ICUs are filling. And so this variant is very different in how it affects our young people, where before we could say, well, the impact isn't as great. That's not the case anymore. The other thing that is different is that if you are a fully vaccinated person and contract COVID, test positive for COVID, you can transmit that to other people. So before, when we would say, well, unvaccinated people can walk through our campuses or, be around people, it's great. That's the advantage of a vaccine. The variant has made it very impossible for us to do that. And we see more and more variants that are coming in other countries that are going to show their face here as well, that are even more contagious. The Delta variant is said to be more contagious than chickenpox. And so I would like to request that the governing board pass a mask requirement for everybody on our campuses. And I think that the reason is really clear. We've been saying in this district that we look to the science, and I think the science is very clear in the position that we can't do what we've been doing and just say, put a mask on, please. There has to be the expectation of all of our staff members that they'll be wearing a mask. We have probably over 30% of our district cannot be vaccinated because of age. I know my youngest can't. I know many of our children cannot, or their friends cannot. And so we have to do everything we can in this district to ensure their safety. That's our number one priority. Thanks.
Any other comments by board members?
Ms. Shaw.
Go ahead.
So I'm going to echo Ms. Grijalva in terms of, I think that we need to have a mask mandate, or however we want to word that. It's just, my own daughter's vaccinated because she's of age, but we have a large percentage of our kiddos that aren't and can't. And I know there's a lot of staff that are also not able to be vaccinated. And there's only, we can give accommodations, or the district can give accommodations, but we just need to think of the health and safety. I don't know about anybody else's child. My child likes wearing the mask. She likes pretending, and I'm sure a lot of little other kids like pretending they're ninjas. And I understand it's more at the adult level. The adults are the ones that have the problem with it. Kids I've talked to, my daughter's age, my nephews who are younger. I have a niece in high school who's going to be senior at Rincon. None of their friends have a problem with the mask. It's the adults. And I think if we look at it within ourselves and look and listen to the children out of the mouth of babes, that they know the right thing to do. And the right thing is to have these masks until, as an adult, I don't particularly care for them either, but I recognize the health and safety of my community and my family. My father got COVID. He was hospitalized for a week. He's now what you call one of those, the long haulers, and every day is a struggle for him. So I don't want to see that for other families. And I hope that my other colleagues feel the same way. Thank you.
Well, I absolutely unite with what has been said so far. I think, it's better to err on the side of caution than to have a similar happening as what's going on in other districts near us. Dr. Gravoishaw, did you want to weigh in?
Thank you, Ms. Shaw. I do. Before we as a governing board or as a school district can even begin to focus on issues of academic achievement, teaching our students, helping them learn and grow, our district's first and foremost responsibility is to make sure that while they are in our schools, our students, teachers, and staff are safe and healthy. Nothing is more important. In just a few days, tomorrow and Monday, all three of my own children will be attending schools on TUSD campuses. All of them are under 12 and not eligible for vaccination. I'm a family physician, as you all know, and I have lost patients to COVID and seen the devastation COVID has had on their families. According to the American Academy of Pediatrics, as many as 0.3% of all child COVID-19 cases resulted in death. Now we think 0.3%, that's not a big deal, that's really minimal. That's 0.0003 times the number of students we have. And when we have over 40,000 students on our campuses, most of whom, like my own children, are too young to be vaccinated, along with thousands of teachers and staff, that's in the dozens of people who can be affected and affected by mortality because of the decision we're going to make today. The science and public health recommendations are unequivocal. COVID is spreading. The Delta variant is dangerous and very contagious. Masks help reduce the spread of COVID. And for especially those children who are too young to be vaccinated, Masks are a major line, one of the main lines of defense against COVID, along with other mitigation strategies of hand washing and sanitation and other things that our district is putting in place. While Governor Ducey and the state legislature have decided to ignore the advice of our public health experts and endanger our community, we can't sit idle and watch COVID inevitably spread throughout our schools and devastate so many TUSD families. This is why I will support, along with my colleagues, a requirement to have masks on TUSD campuses and authorize TUSD to enforce this. As a family physician who ran for office in the middle of a pandemic, the people of Tucson elected me to follow the best available public health guidance and put the health and safety of our students, teachers, and staff first and foremost. This decision is the best interest of our TUSD community, and I have no doubt that this is the right thing to do.
Thank you, Dr. Shaw. Any other discussion, board members or Dr. Trujillo? Go ahead, Ms. Graham.
Thank you. So as far as legally, could I just move the mask requirement as a form of a motion, or what would you recommend as far as language, Mr. Ross?
I think that would work. I know Dr. Grivo-Shaw had a statement near the end of his that sounded like a motion too, but it would be fine. I mean, you made one as well, require masks, and I like the idea of the enforcement language added to it as well.
Now I'll second Ms. Grijalva's motion.
Okay, can we do a roll call vote, Michelle?
Ms. Grijalva,
Yes.
Dr. Grivo-Shaw,
Yes.
Ms. Luna Rose,
Yes.
Ms. Shaw.
Yes. Item passes unanimously. Okay, so now we're moving on to call to the audience.
Actually, on the part of the administration, so one other matter for consideration that's under the area of additional COVID-19 mitigation recommendations. But before that, I want to give this governing board my word, and I want to give the community my word that this administration will stand unconditionally behind the actions taken by this governing board this morning. We have pledged since March 16th, 2020, the day that it was announced by Governor Ducey that Arizona schools and school districts would be shut down indefinitely due to the spread of the COVID-19 virus. We made a pledge to you that we would never waver from viewing this issue as a public health crisis, not through a political lens, not through a partisan lens, not through the lens of special interest groups. And I believe that the governing board's actions this morning have reflected that. In the face of unprecedented incursion upon their local authority, local control, by a governor's office and a legislature that had previously championed local control and local governance in the early part of this pandemic, only to flip and contradict that earlier support. I think the governing board's action this morning reflects their commitment to you as elected officials that you selected to be in these positions, and a strong exercise in local control reflective of the conditions that are afflicting our community at this moment. The administration joins this governing board in prioritizing above all else the health and safety of our students and our employees as we head into this new school year. With that being said, the final matter that I'd like governing board guidance and action on with regard to any additional COVID-19 mitigation measures it would like to direct is the matter of the August 10th governing board meeting. Given the spread of the Delta variant, it's the recommendation of the administration that we just continue as we have been with governing board meetings virtually facilitated from Duffy and closed to the public. We still don't know who's vaccinated, who's not. We also know that this Delta variant is significantly more aggressive, that the average carrier of the Delta variant, whether they're vaccinated or non-vaccinated, the average infection rate is 5 per infected person, well above the average of 2 or 3 from the original variant that we were dealing with last spring. That being said, I'd like for Tucson Unified to continue doing its part with regard to limiting the amount of public gatherings that we facilitate. What makes Tucson Unified different with regard to governing board meetings is we have some of the most well-attended, crowded governing board meetings in all of Pima County. rival the Pima County Board of Supervisors. We rival City Council, where most other Southern Arizona school districts don't have the same challenge with sparsely attended governing board meetings. So I make this recommendation and seek guidance from this governing board on the matter of the in-person meeting scheduled for August 10th and whether it will consider indefinitely just carrying on as we have been, meeting virtually out of Duffy.
Dr. Trujillo or Ms. Shaw,
Go ahead.
I would move in favor of keeping our meetings remote until our community is in a safer position.
Any other thoughts, board members?
I'm in favor of it as well. We are a different district compared to other ones that aren't as heavily attended.
And Ms. Shaw, if I can add, the other issue for me is if we're going to open up our board meetings to public, I don't want to have to limit it to 20 people and whoever get there first. I mean, that to me is not accessibility. It's, you know, if you are able to get out of work and stand in a line and get one of the few public seats that will be available in our boardrooms, that to me isn't an accessible public meeting. And we also have children that, I mean, we can still contract COVID and I can give it to my son. And so if we're going to continue to be on Zoom, I think that it just makes sense for us to stay as remote as possible. There's no reason for us to gather if it can be avoided.
Dr. Gravoy-Shaw, do you want to weigh in on this question?
I'll support the motion as well.
Okay. Personally, I would like to carry on and go ahead with the public board meetings. I think that, you know, it mirrors what's happening with our employees. They're gathering because that's the job, you know what I mean? And I think that our job as well is to, you know, meet publicly. And I guess there is some concerns about accessibility and limiting, you know, the audience, but there is an overflow. And I think we should move forward with public meetings.
If I can just speak to that, I mean, I think my concern is not about myself. I'm fully vaccinated. I will wear a mask if we do have a public meeting, and that's what we decide to do. You know, again, as Ms. Grijalva, I think, alluded to, you know, do we want to have meetings that bring together the public in a way that can potentially be, you know, spreader events? And so at this point, you know, we need to decide, not for my own sake or for our own sake as vaccinated governing board members and vaccinated senior staff, about our safety, you know, with vaccination and mask wearing, you know, should mitigate that. But, you know, what does it mean for the public in terms of safety and health? And so, again, I'm willing to support either and, you know, hear from the board members because I don't feel uncomfortable myself, but just want to make sure we do what's right public health wise.
Ms. Shaw.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not actually in favor of limiting anybody's voice to their governing board, and I want to hear from voices. But I think my issue is, and I'm vaccinated, I'm happy wearing masks. I'm not, you know, meeting in person is fine. My issue is if we do allow it, that we have, as Ms. Grijalva said, we're only allowing 20 people and there's a whole crowd outside. So it's not as accessible and people may get angry. I mean, people are not going to like the decision we're going to make anyway in a few minutes, but, and the one we just made, but it's, I think it doesn't allow for more discussion. And maybe we look into, if we keep it the way we have, maybe we look into having people call in or do something a little different than we have, just having the letters read for those who feel like we're stifling, and we're not trying to stifle, we're just trying to be as safe as possible.
Yeah, I still feel that, you know, we all are in some ways are risking, you know, our health and so is our staff. And so to have our meetings public and not semi-remote, I think makes the most sense.
Can we get a roll call vote?
So is that a motion by Ms. Grijalva and seconded by Ms. Luna Rose? Is that for the record?
Yes.
Thank you.
Michelle, can you do a roll call vote, please?
Yes. Ms. Grijalva,
Yes.
Dr. Gravosha,
Yes.
Ms. Luna Rose,
Yes.
Ms. Shaw.
No. Item passes.
Ms. Shaw, one other thing, Dr. Trujillo, were we going to talk about pool testing?
That's August 10th.
Okay.
Yeah, August 10th, as part of the upcoming COVID-19 update, there'll be a presentation on pool testing.
Okay.
And Dr. Trujillo, does our move to require masks for the time being, can we relook at the allowing volunteers to be in our schools, because I think they really are instrumental.
With a mandatory mask policy, that changes our view on the volunteers. Absolutely, Board Clerk Shaw.
Okay, so they will be allowed on campus.
Our recommendation to hold on volunteers was based off of a mask optional policy. Now that we are mask mandatory, it's different. So we certainly will revisit our guidance.
Thank you.
And Dr. Trujillo, if we can have an update, as we discussed before, every meeting on how the district is doing. I think transparency is going to be really important to make sure everyone is aware of where we are as a district. Because regardless of what we do here, that COVID variant is going to be going through our schools and affecting us. So I think we've done a good job of trying to mitigate as much as we can, but bringing people together is always going to be an issue.
Absolutely. Starting August 10th, every meeting, kicking off next Tuesday, you'll have a COVID-19 update. These updates will always be study action, which leaves the door open for the governing board to formally give direction or vote to direct the administration in any area it wishes.
Okay, so let's move back on the agenda to the call to the audience. During the audience call, the board clerk will recognize speakers and maintain order by setting appropriate limitations. The governing board is committed to the safety of the entire TUSD community in order to observe the recommended safeguards for reducing the rate of spread of COVID-19. The following procedures related to the call to the audience portion of board meetings will be observed. All public comments for the meeting were accepted in written form. Public comments will be read into the record by the Program Coordinator of Staff Services to the Governing Board. Individuals addressing the board should observe rules of propriety and good conduct and refrain from impertinent or slanderous remarks. TUSD serves students from all ages, so speakers should be aware that children may be present or listening. Our staff will make sure each board member receives a copy, and at the conclusion of the call to the audience, the governing board president will ask if individual board members wish to respond to criticism made by those who have addressed the board, wish to ask staff to review a matter, or wish to ask that a matter be put on a future agenda. By law, at most 2 board members can address any single issue raised during the call to the audience. And contents of this card are public information. And our first letter is by John Grubbs.
Governing Board and Superintendent. The CDC guidelines are clear that everyone should be wearing a mask indoors despite our governor and state legislators' ban on mask mandates. It is the district's job to ensure the safety of both the children and the staff. I hope this district is brave enough to stand up to laws based on misinformation and follow the experts' recommendations on how to curb community spread of COVID-19. The Delta variant is substantially more dangerous for children. Please make masking mandatory, or I will be removing my child from in-person teaching that she needs to succeed. Her safety is more important to me, and I will be taking her out of the district in favor of other remote learning opportunities. Thank you, concerned TUSD parent. Respectfully, John Grubbs.
Next is Amber Norris.
Do not even attempt to force masks or vaccines in our schools. You will be met with legal action from us parents. You will be held responsible for going against the law and our rights as parents. Amber Norris.
Ryan Schmidt.
Hello, I am sharing this on behalf of a concerned parent. Their concerns originated with an ice cream social Meet the Teacher event being advertised by their child's school. Please convey to the TUSD governing board my concerns regarding all in-person activities for K-8 students. COVID infection rates are continuing concern in our district, and these are for the most vulnerable among us, as they are not yet eligible to be vaccinated. As we have seen with the Vail School District, within 5 days of returning to in-person schooling, one fifth grade class has already needed to quarantine. A link was provided in regards to the Vail School District. Let us not make the same irresponsible mistake. Thank you for your time, Ryan Schmidt.
And Eva Romero.
Let me get this straight. Number one, Delta is at least twice as contagious as earlier strains. Number two, Delta is also twice as likely to kill you if you are not unvaccinated. Number three, everyone under 12 is unvaccinated. Number four, vaccinated people who get it are just as contagious as non-vaccinated people. Number five, transmission is on the rise in our country. Number six, Delta is also more likely to make children really, really sick than previous strains, as in babies are intubated. Number seven, our state legislature passed a law that prohibits public schools from having mask mandates to help keep kids healthy. Number eight, many of our kids already did a year of virtual schooling, and for many, 1 year is pretty much all we can take. Leaders in several school districts in different states with similar situations can plainly see that this is hogwash and have announced that they will require masks for the 2021-22 school year. Will TUSD be on the right side of history, or are we going to just lay down and let a few exclusives play politics with our children's lives? Sincerely, Eva Romero, mother of a 6-year-old who is my sunshine.
Melissa Conroy.
Governor Ducey and board members, Tucson Unified School District in Pima County. In regards to Governor Ducey's statement on July 27, 2021, in a response to the CDC updated guidance, he said Arizona does not allow mask mandates, vaccine mandates, or vaccine passports. In response on July 30th, when someone questioned Adelita Grijalva's stance against Governor Ducey on her Facebook page, the person said, "It is a law, and I hate to see breaking a law is being taught to our kids." Adelita wrote back, "Showing our kids to fight against a bad law is a good example of advocacy." Really, Adelita, that is what you want to show our kids? Defiance is okay when your point of view is not met? Some people actually agree with the law, and because it is law, you have to obey it. Why are you even on the board if you can't follow the law? What are you teaching our children? You should be removed. Board members and my group may not agree on many things, and that is our right under the Constitution, but you have to follow the rule of law, or what are we? According to the American Institute for Economic Research article from March 2021, children are at very low risk of spreading COVID to other children, teachers, or others at home. This is settled science. Masking can do positive harm to children as it can to adults. I'm sure you will say, but we have the Delta variant now. Ridiculous. On July 30th, 2021, the Biden administration was unable to provide any proof that the Delta variant is real, and the White House Deputy Press Secretary admitted in a press briefing that she has no idea if there is even a test for it. Where is the proof if there isn't even a test? We will not blindly follow yours or the CDC's advice again. You need to show us the evidence, or as you say, science. Where are the clinical trials and peer-reviewed studies that show masks actually work? And what is the standard? Everyone wears a different mask, some homemade, some bandanas from the dollar store, some surgical masks. It's ridiculous. Where is the proof of the Delta variant? Also on August 1st, 2021, a Phoenix union teacher sued to prevent the mask mandate. If the TUSD board continues down this path, get ready for lawsuits. The parents are not going to take it anymore, and we are not going anywhere. Melissa Conroy, mother of 2 children in TUSD.
Ray Gerving.
Good afternoon. I am very excited for school to be beginning in person this week. I am happy that we have the freedom to choose whether or not to send our children in wearing masks and that the teachers and staff have the same freedom to choose. Both summer school and Jumpstart were carried out in a safe way for my daughter. My one concern is that parent and grandparent volunteers are being allowed back into school. This is my opinion is an unnecessary risk. While I acknowledge the help and support they provide schools, I feel it is an additional risk that we do not need to take at this time. Volunteers often move from class to class and bring younger siblings with them. It is a risk that we do not need to take and one that will increase the likelihood of classes needing to isolate. Please understand my goal is not to prevent in-person learning. On the contrary, I would like us to exclude anything that may jeopardize it, at least until we can see how being back at school affects COVID cases. Thank you for your time. Here's to a safe and effective school year. Mr. Ray Gerving.
Mr. Roberts?
Greetings. I am open to a mask mandate under the following conditions. Number one, if enrollment falls because parents say no to masks, TUSD needs to guarantee no layoffs for this school year period. Further, the policy that district's leadership has until Labor Day to lay people off must be suspended. Number two, climate control must work at all times, period. As a person with one of the highest forms of asthma, if it is too hot or humid, wearing a mask is painful and causes constant coughing. Today, our first day back was an example of this. Our climate control at Rossridge was not working. Number three, TUSD must protect all employees from any legal trouble from parents or the state if we go with a mask mandate. Us teachers do not make policy. Thus, as a board, you should vote to guarantee protection from legal issues. Number four, in-person school activities must happen, period. Further, K-8 schools should be given access to a high school gym for school sports as long as there is a mask mandate. Thanks, Mr. Roberts.
John Stevenson?
After looking at the agenda, it looks as if you are trying to make masks mandatory again for Tucson Unified School District. Mark my words, I am no longer asking for permission. I will remind you, this is law. No country, city, town, school district governing board, or charter school governing body may require the use of face coverings by students or staff. It does not matter what our country or city states. Now let us look at one of the board members that is a strong advocate for masks. She is a complete hypocrite. She has been seen in public numerous times maskless, going against the advice she gives the public. She was seen maskless in times of high case counts and low case counts. It makes no difference to her. This is not rules for thee, not for me. She is encouraging many to go against this law purely because she doesn't agree with it. There are many laws we don't agree on. However, it does not change the fact that they are law. This is a dangerous person to have on our board and in our community, and she is strongly encouraging students and the community to break the law. She is not a good role model. She is teaching young children and adults that you can disobey a law because you don't agree with it. How far do we take this? Is it okay for our kids to disobey rules at school and in the general public? Just because she disagrees with this does not validate breaking a law. I disagree with her being a board member. I encourage everyone to take steps to get her removed and replaced. Adelita once told me in her county position that the mandate was a law and my opinion did not matter. Mandates are not laws. Officers of our community spoke out and she said they would never hold anyone accountable for that mandate. You can't preach for the community to follow a mandate, then come in here and try to break a valid law. Also, let us take this hypocrisy further. Adelita wants to mask your kids. Not long ago, her own child participated in a group camp school event maskless. If she truly believed what she advises for the community, she would have told her child to wear a mask for the entire event, except when it was not possible to wear one. Please show me one study where masks work, specifically regarding COVID. I have training in masks. Do you have training in mask usage combined with disease? Cloth and paper masks are pure theater. You are not God. You do not have authority over me nor my children. Your job is not to dictate health measures. The school is here to educate our children. If this law is violated, I will continue to take my children to school maskless. It makes no sense to do another wave of masking considering it did not work before. Insanity is doing the same thing again, expecting different results. Dawn Stevenson.
Next is Kylie Walzak and Troy Nyman.
Dear TUSD governing board members, over the last 7 days, Pima County has seen a 21.44% increase in COVID cases, a 1.91% increase in positivity rates to 8.15%, with an 18.42% drop in testing volume. We can assume the percent positive is even higher, and at a 160.98% increase in new hospital admissions. The Delta variant is established in Pima County, and our community is experiencing substantial spread. Many of the parts of Arizona experience higher rates of transmission again. While the data is not yet showing the Delta variant to be more harmful to children, it is exponentially easier to contract and transmit, especially in the types of classroom settings we are preparing our children for on Thursday. From TUSD leadership, we have yet to receive any updates on how federal funds have been used to improve classroom ventilation systems. We have been left in the dark about our school's protocols should someone show symptoms or test positive for COVID. What do we do? Will we even know if there's been a confirmed case? The CDC will not perfect over these long and difficult months since the start of the pandemic has consistently emphasized a Swiss cheese approach to keeping unvaccinated little ones safe that includes layering many strategies like keeping at least 3 feet of distance from one another, conducting class in well-ventilated areas, and crucially, proper mask wearing by everyone who comes into contact with our children. Not requiring everyone wear masks in the classroom is guaranteeing a disruption to the school year when COVID is passed around. We already see this happen in numerous schools and districts across the state, including right here in Pima County. The state legislature tacked on a dangerous, politically motivated, and potentially unconstitutional provision to the K-12 education budget. This budget does not go into effect until September 29th, regardless of the retroactivity clause. On Friday, July 30th, Phoenix Union High School District became the first district in the state to stand up to Governor and defend the safety of children and the community by reinstating their mask mandate. Phoenix Union statement, which I encourage you to read if you haven't already, is a kind of loving, respectful, fact-based, and detailed communication I expect and know that we deserve from my friends and neighbors who make up TUSD. In a public health crisis, relying on personal preference and responsibility doesn't cut it. Sadly, this has been proven over and over throughout this pandemic. But as administrators and leaders for this district, it is up to you to draw the line and reject any further politicization of the pandemic at the expense of our children's health and safety. I'm asking you to continue to require masks in all TUSD schools.
Excuse me, Ms. Pena, your 3 minutes are up.
Thank you.
Next is Liliana Orozco.
I'm
Hello.
sorry, Mr. Ross, I'm sorry to interrupt. I need to leave because my daughter has a doctor's appointment that was scheduled long before we did the emergency board meeting. So is it okay if I step out?
Well, there will be, if there's not a quorum, then there would be no legal action that could be taken.
Right. So if we're just finishing the call to the audience, then as long as we can continue with the meeting, right? Because we don't have any other action items.
Well, technically it wouldn't be a meeting anymore. But you could continue to listen to whoever's remaining, continue to listen to letters. But technically there would be no meeting once one board member leaves.
How many more speakers do we have? Or
Yeah, excuse me. We have 42 speakers. We're on the 10th one right now.
so we have 20 minutes allotted for this meeting. So where are we in that
You have
regard?
6 minutes left of the 20 minutes.
Okay.
So would it be advisable that I call in on my phone?
Yeah, I can only stay on for the other 6 minutes. I can't stay for 42 speakers.
You certainly can participate by phone. That's allowable under your rules and the law.
Okay, I will do that. Just so I would like to hear the rest of the speakers. So let me take off here and I'll be on in just a moment. Sorry about that. I should have mentioned that earlier, and my apologies. And for all those who are watching,
Thanks, Natalie.
thanks.
Should we wait for her to log back in before we continue with Ms. Orozco's letter?
A short recess until she comes back would make sense.
Take a short recess.
Okay, thanks.
And I see that she's logged back on. So can we continue? Now, Ms. Tianis?
Hello, I'm emailing you in regards to the district wanting to mask our children. We demand that you all respect and follow the law. It is not the district's job to decide what is best for our children's health. Excuse me. It is not the district's job to decide what is best for our children's health, but our own. Please respect this and keep our children unmasked. Sincerely, Liliana Orozco.
Next is Tina Howard.
To the members of the governing board, I write to you today as a concerned parent. I urge you to enforce the mask mandate for all TUSD properties, schools, students, staff, faculty, and visitors/vendors. As you know, the governor's order violates a Pima County ruling on the matter and defies recommendations by the CDC, WHO, and the American Academy of Pediatrics. I am also under the impression that the original mask mandate does not expire until September 29th of this year. I support the call from the Tucson Education Association in their call to keep students safe with a mask mandate. Thank you for your consideration. Tina Howard, parent to Anderson and Everett, third graders at Miles ELC.
Next is Margot Bronis.
I am so scared for my little 5-year-old kindergarten daughter who is starting at Lineweaver this Thursday. We attended the wonderful Jumpstart program and only 4 children in her class wore masks. As parents, we feel so helpless because we can't keep my daughter out of school, yet she is at so much risk. Please take a stand, require masks. I understand the new law doesn't go into effect until September 30th. If that's true, let's mandate masks until then. That will get this school year off to a strong start and help our little ones get in the habit of wearing masks. And it buys us another 2 months to get closer to vaccinations for our youngest. I was very disappointed in the language that the school is using regarding mask wearing. It could be much stronger, encouraging mask wearing. Mask face coverings are recommended by CDC and local health agencies, but are not mandated. Welcome letter from school. Why not just say, please send your child to school wearing a mask per CDC recommendations? You don't have to say it, it is not mandated, as long as you don't say it's mandatory. And please include more information to parents about why it is so important to mask up. It just seemed very weak, and I wondered if this was the language that the district recommended. If so, come on, it could be much stronger and not run afoul of the new law. Please, we are counting on you to defend our children's safety. Margot Baranis.
Next is Charles Santa.
I wish to strongly encourage the governing board of TUSD1 to follow CDC and other public health guidelines for the protection of students and their immediate and extended families and our community for protection against spread of the SARS-CoV-2 virus. I strongly oppose of the irresponsible and dangerous proclamation of the governor of Arizona, which attempts to prevent implementation of public health measures for the control of COVID-19 in our schools and elsewhere. As a grandparent of a 7-year-old child attending the Sam Hughes Elementary School, I am appalled that public health measures for her protection, masking, quarantine following exposure to SARS-CoV-2, and other appropriate measures have been banned by an irresponsible politician who does not listen to the advice of scientists, physicians, and public health professionals with regard to those precautions. In addition to my concern for my granddaughter and her parents, I am also concerned about the increased risk of transmission of infection from my granddaughter to my wife, who is at very high risk of death from exposure to an infection by SARS-CoV-2. She has been on a ventilator on 3 occasions with pneumonia. We provide periodic child care for our granddaughter, and I'm extremely concerned about the risk of her exposure to an infection by SARS-CoV-2 by failing to adhere to public health guidelines for political reasons. My wife and I have volunteered with the Reading Seed Literacy Program at TUSD for schools for 7 years until March 2020, when COVID resulted in suspension of the program in schools. We would like to volunteer again in the schools if there is adherence to public health precautions in the schools, but some politicians have decided that they know better than all of the scientists and public health officials. I believe that TUSD should defy the proclamation of the governor of Arizona and that the proclamation should be challenged in court. As an individual with the concerns noted above, I would certainly support and be willing to be named as an affected individual in a suit against the irresponsible and immoral actions of the governor of Arizona. Thank you for your work for our children and for our community. Charles J. Sanner, MD.
Next is Jennifer Guetta.
Dear governing board members, I am greatly concerned about the rise of COVID cases and new breakthrough infections. Although I have made sure to vaccinate my child and encourage his use of a mask indoors, I'm not confident that the school environment is safe without universal masking and precautions. As the Delta variant becomes more widespread, I ask that TUSD institute a mask mandate before the beginning of the 2021-2022 year. Thank you, Jennifer Guerra, Tucson High Magnet School parent.
Next is Neil and McLeod.
Good morning. As concerned parents with 2 unvaccinated kids under 12 attending Miles ELC starting Thursday, we are hoping the TUSD leadership has the bravery and forethought to make mask wearing mandatory for elementary school students for the fall semester. The governor's mandate is based on politics only and goes against science and common sense, putting our kids and all other kids at risk for contracting COVID since they can't be vaccinated. Our kids will definitely be wearing masks at school, and it would be nice to know that they are protected under your care by the fact that their classmates will also be masked. Please do the right thing for Tucson's children and keep them safe. Please do not succumb to the politics of fear and divisiveness promoted by the governors with his ill-advised threats. Thank you, Neil and Ellen McLeod.
Ian Johnson.
Michelle, members of the board, you are at the 20-minute mark for allocated for call to the audience.
I'm sorry, Michelle, I can't stay on for the rest of the speakers.
Thank you for that. And last on the agenda is future agenda items. Dr. Trujillo. Dr. Trujillo, are there any future meeting date agenda items? Looks like he's not there. Board members?
I think that since I personally don't have any, I don't know if you do, I think we can just adjourn the meeting.
Yeah, I don't have anything at this time. Thank you.
Dr. Trujillo?
Upcoming agenda items. I just want to remind the community that next week, August 10th, at our regularly scheduled governing board meeting, we're going to have a public presentation on some of the changes to transportation. I will be facilitating a public forum tonight for all parents affected by our move to a hub-based system for transporting students. We recognize that this is a change in service, and I'll be personally addressing your concerns, frustrations tonight, and then we will have a public presentation next week. Also, we will be providing our first in a series of every meeting COVID-19 updates for the board. The centerpiece of next week's presentation will be a first look at the possibility of classroom level COVID-19 testing on a weekly basis for those that opt in, otherwise known as pool testing. We'll have a presentation scheduled next week at our regularly scheduled governing board meeting on August 10th.
Well, thank you all for coming, and meeting is adjourned.
Thank you. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.